idea that the reason why we need to have in Kabbalah and Chassidus needs to speak about all the different levels of Lamata Mata in Tachlis. So to explain that, we said that it's necessary for the birur of the clip, since we may not engage in clip, since we may not be involved directly in klippa, like we say every day in davening, al day nisoyin. So therefore, how is one going to be mevarer klippa? So that is going to be, we're going to talk about it. That's through learning the ideas of klippa the way they are in Torah. Because just like we find, for example, concerning avodah zarah, and when it comes to avodah zarah, one may not study books that are devoted to avodah zarah, but um, if one is learning the halachas of avodah zarah in Torah, so then he's not worried and not concerned about it drawing him in and causing him to chas v'sholom fall through in something negative, but rather that the inyanim that he's learning about will actually cause the elevation and the halas hanetzutzas of klipa of avodah zarah. Now the Rebbe is going to explain a similar example concerning the idea of Golus Mitzrayim, the way it is in Torah, as opposed to Golus Mitzrayim, the way it is in the Golus itself. So again, Ois Vav Peit Lamed Zayin. The idea behind this is, like Alter Rebbe explains in Torah, instead of the fact that in Golus Mitzrayim, the first Golus of all the Golus, the enslavement was with mortar and with bricks, all the service and all the work that they did in a very difficult manner, in the literal sense, in the ash of whatever has to be accomplished can be accomplished now through being involved in Torah. As we know that Golus Mitzrayim, for example, was an introduction and enabling the Yidden, because they went through Golus Mitzrayim, it was enabling them to be able to go and receive the Torah. In a similar vein, for us to be able to receive the Geula of Mashiach's times, there's the Golus now as well. But the Golus now as well does not have to be in literal Chaimer and Levanim, but it could mean in work and involvement in Torah. It brings down like it says in the Zohar, B'chaimer, the word Chaimer, which literally means mortar, which was used over there in the construction in Mitzrayim. So Chaimer is related to Kal V'chaimer. It's going on the concept that's brought down Gemara about Kal V'chaimer. One of the ways how one of the Yud Gimel Midas Shatar in the Dresh of them, one of the ways how we derive certain halachas. So again, literally Levanim means the bricks, but the way it is in the future, the way it is now, the way it can be done now in its stead is dal libun hilchasa. That Levanim is the word whitening, in other words, clarifying and whitening the halach. Behind this means through a person toiling and putting in effort in himself. In such a way that it's a very breaking type of labor, a labor that breaks the person down, which means it's a true toil according to way Torah, the Torah of truth defines toil. But what's he toiling in? Believe it, Torah, the study of Torah, believe in the manner of Kal V'chaimer and clarifying the halachim. So through that, we are affecting even more and in a greater way than what we affected in Golus Mitzrayim through our avodah with mortar and with bricks. In the literal way, we can accomplish so much more by having the effort in the mortar and the bricks in the spiritual level. The Rebbe goes on to say, from this is understood that since we're dealing with Yigia in Torah And that's what causes the elevation and the preparation for greater things that will follow. It's insufficient to have that avodah just in a general manner. El havoida tzrichalias ba'ofen shemachnis atzmi gam ba'pratim. The avoida has to be in such a way that the person inserts himself and invests themselves also in the details, as we'll soon bring this out concerning the learning about the Yom of Klippus, Lamata Mata in Tachlis, even in the details. Ukemoibel Hilcha says, for example, when a person is whitening, clarifying halacha, that he needs to whiten and clarify the halacha and all the details of the details. Until he's able to derive and to come to a maskana, to a conclusion of the discussion, to bring it out according to the halacha that takes effort and toil and getting into the details. Top of page Lamed Ches. This actually reflects a general service of a yid to the Eibishter. Before B'Shara Yichud Lad Moram Tzoy, like it's brought down the Mitler Rebbe in his Shara Yichud, so that our avodah should be the way it's supposed to be. It's insufficient when we have avodas Hashem that involves thinking into the greatness of the Eibishter and so on. It's not sufficient to have an avodah and the meditation in a general manner. In the idea, of course, it has to be in a way of knowing godliness. Know the God of your Father. What does it mean, knowing? Knowing is not just in general. Oh, I know there's an Eibishter. I know there's Saiviv. I know there's Sfiris. No, knowledge means it's such a manner that we know the topics of the Sfiris, and all the detailed matters that came down from them by chain descent, in a detailed manner. So that is the way we're supposed to meditate. That is the way we're supposed to think about the Eibishter, not just in a general way, not just to know addresses. I know there's Saiv Kolom, I know there's Ramal Kolom, I know there's Sfiris, but actually to understand it into the details, into every specific matter and every specific detail. Then the Rebbe brings in a similar vein, that when a person is working on transforming themselves, it also has to be involved in my own specific transformation in the specifics of myself. It says in line 8, similar to this explained in the Kuntras that also deals with avodah, how a person is supposed to work on themselves, come closer to the Eibishter, from the Rebbe Rashab. In addition to the general idea that a person needs to accept upon himself the yoke of heaven, he has to have bittul to the Eibishter. He needs to know that he has to do what he has to do as a yid. And that is the foundation. That is like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, that's the beginning, that's the beginning of the avodah. It's the primary part of avodah. It's the root of the avodah. Is basic Kabbalah soil. But that's only the foundation. The avodah cannot just be a general. This also has to be drawn down also in a detailed avodah, in details and the details of the details, which means that a person, it's necessary for him to go ahead and see, let's say, in what particular area in avodah the person might be lacking in, and it's important for that person to focus on those things that he needs to improve on. If he knows that he has a problem with a certain midah, the midah of chesed or the midah of gura or some other attribute, some other negative trait, so it's not just enough to say Kabbalah soil, and that's what my davening is about. No, it's necessary to take the time of davening to focus on a specific matter as well. In a similar vein, the Rebbe many times said that a person, when he takes hachlata, when he takes a resolution, whether it's after Fabrengen or certain specific times or comes to Yom Haledes, whatever. It should be something specific, not just general. I'm going to be a good boy. I'm going to be a good yid. I'm going to do Torah mitzvahs. No, there needs to be a specific thing in which he focuses on. So now the Rebbe is going to bring us back to the original issue that we were talking about concerning the time and pages and the amount of ideas that are expressed in Chassidus concerning the details of clip. Line 13, V'zel Gamata. Nizbaru pratim 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 binyan dalumazeh was explained in Kabbalah, and which is known as the wisdom of truth, was explained details and details of details in matters of the opposite of kedusha. The Zohar Parshas Kudei, it's explained in the Zohar Parshas Kudei, Bashar Man Skarm Leil Shmeitz Chaim, and in the sections that we explained, that we mentioned before, Neitz Chaim, V'kiyotze B'zeh Bashar Makom, this is similar to that in other places, like in Chassidus, like in the Maimer of the Frierdiker Rebbe, that he goes into explaining what the different levels of Lamata Mata Adin Tachlis are. So why does he go into all those details? Because we need to refine it. And to refine it, you need to have the details. Because the refinement of the opposite side occurs only through studying these matters in details and details of details, but in a way of clarifying and whitening the halach. Let's see if we can finish the mimer today. So let's try to keep the questions to a minimum. If it's understood what we learned, let's go on.
Just in general, a generic question. Our focus doesn't seem to be too much into learning Torah. And okay, we of course we study Torah, but as opposed to other groups, we do other stuff. So in this mimer, it seems that is the main thing to accomplish what we need to accomplish.
Here we're talking about how to elevate the idea of Shal Shlipsat makes. Those aspects, those parts of Klippa that we are not able to engage with, how do we elevate those parts of Klippa? So those parts of Klippa are elevated through Torah. And it's not just enough to just know in general that Klippa exists and to learn in general that Klippa exists, but it's necessary for Mamorim, like the Frierdiker Rebbe's Maimer, to go into the details of Lamata Mata Din Tachlis, because it's necessary to have the details clarified and understood in Torah. That's through that we will elevate the Klippas in their detail. Yes, we get add. This is also what we find in the revealed part of Torah, Masechtas Tainis. It's also Masechtas Megillah. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak. Over there, the Gemara talks about there was 4 beautiful women in the world. One of them was Rachav, the one that helped the spies that entered Eretz Yisrael, that eventually married Yeshua. Put the red string over there out of the wall. Amar Rabbi Yitzchak says, Rachav miyad nikre. Whoever says Rachav, the name of this woman, since she was so beautiful, it would bring the person to the seminal mission, to the idea of carry. He comes to the well-known sin, heaven forbid, it causes the lengthening of the golus. It's like explained in many places how this sin contributes to the lengthening of the golus. The Amalei Rav Nachman told Rabbi Yitzchak, what do you mean? Whoever says it becomes immediately. I said it, and it doesn't bother me. I'm not worried. I'm not concerned. Nothing occurred. Amalei, so Rabbi Yitzchak answered him, Ki kamina. When did I say this? Those that know her, those that recognize her. So therefore, when they mention the name, obviously it brings up the memory of this person, etc., etc. So therefore, it brings them to Tumas Ker. So the Rebbe is going to explain a deeper meaning in this word Yoida Makira, taken from the Rebbe's father's explanations and based and connected to what we're talking about now. Explain Levi Yitzchak to my father the detailed matters of this according to Kabbalah. So now he's going to explain what is the idea of Yoida Umakira in the way that applies to our avoida when we engage in clip. When a person is involved in matters down here below, it's in such a way that he is involved, he knows it. What does knowing it mean? We know the word das, like it says, so das means from bonding. So if he's involved in the physical matters in such a way of das, and recognizing these matters the way they are very much down below, you can come to a matter that's unwanted. In my top of page Lamed Tes, like in this topic that we said that the person can come to the well-known sin, heaven forbid. Similar to that in other matters, similar to that. Similar to what that we said, for example, that Avodah Zarah. You can't just read Avodah Zarah books we spoke about yesterday. But if a person is learning it in Torah, not in the way that he's engaging with Avodah Zarah, but he's seeing how it's prohibited, that's a whole different thing. But in the state, like Rabbi Yitzchak told Rav Nachman, that Rav Nachman does not know or does not recognize. Rather, what is the knowledge of the Yid? In such a way that it's knowing the God of your father. That this knowledge of Klippas is bringing him to serve him with a whole heart, with a full heart, complete heart, like it says, when you know the Eibishter, so then you will serve him b'leiv shalom. Then he doesn't have to be concerned of being involved in those matters that they are very much below. Since he's involved in them the way they are a part of the whole Torah. If he's learning it in Torah, he doesn't have to be concerned. In such a way that also in them is dependent the completion and the fullness of the Torah. It's not just you could learn about those things. Once they are part of Torah, Torah is in a way incomplete if you do not have those parts. Va'ad to such a degree, the completion of the Torah is dependent upon it. There's no difference between the most mundane and lowest part of the Torah that talks about the family of Esav, about Simna was a Pelegish, and the Noicha Va'ilakacha can move him to Gemara, Masach Sanhedrin, like it's understood from the words of the Gemara, Masach Sanhedrin. This means the matters of Torah that speak about the lowest of the low. They are on the same level of holiness, like I'm Hashem your God, the Aser Sadibris. In addition to the fact that we said before, that through studying Torah in the topics of Lamata Mata in Tachlis and the topics concerning Klippa, so now we are able to refine and elevate Klippa in such a way that we are now breaking them, and that is the breaking of the Klippa. That's how they are becoming repaired and uplifted. Following that, after he has the first step of Sur Merah, so then this becomes part of the service of a person in the way of Asay Toiv. Like the teaching of the Baal Shem Tov that we mentioned before, Sur Merah v'Asay Toiv, turn away from bad and then take that bad itself and turn it into good. We can add to this even more in depth. That's what it says. That's what it says in Zohar. That Moshe Rabbeinu was scared from the clip of Paroi. So why was he scared of it? We asked right away at the beginning of the Sikha, if Moshe Rabbeinu was scared of Klippas Paroi, how do we enter into all these things? So he said, we are entering in it with Torah. So therefore, in Torah, we can elevate it and bring it to a higher level. But Pari was scared. Why? Because he had to engage with him. It's because over there, the way Moshe Rabbeinu was involved, it had to be the refinement in such a way that he knew it. In other words, he had to engage with the clipper. And then, since Moshe Rabbeinu had to engage with the clipper, that's why the Eibishter agreed with him. And he said, you know what, let me handle it. He's to Moshe Rabbeinu's fear, the Eibishter did not put it down and say, why are you scared? No, he agreed to it. The Eibishter himself came. I know because the Eibishter doesn't have to be concerned about it. Like it says, who is coming from Edom, the one that's dirtied in clothes, and he comes from Batra, a place over there in Edom, and all my clothing I've made dirty. It's a description like Hashem being a person engaging in war, that he's engaged in war, and just like a warrior is engaged in war, their clothes become completely stained with the blood and the filth of the enemies. The same thing, the Eibishter uses that type of poetic language in describing how he's going to avenge against the Edom and so on. So the Rebbe explains, what does this mean about that the Eibishter says that his garments are dirty? Though the matters of the other side, that he is enclosed in them to refine them, are top of page mem, recognizable on the garments of the Eibishter, to such a degree that he refers to himself. He says, I made myself dirty. I became dirty from it. Hashem is not grasped and taken by this. Just the opposite. Through the Eibishter engaging in such a manner, that's how they are refined. But all of this is possible by Hashem himself. Hashem himself could be engaged with it and not be affected. As opposed to a Jewish person, even including Moshe Rabbeinu. That's not the order of the avodah, and that's why Moshe Rabbeinu was scared, and Hashem agreed and said, I'm going to come with you. Where do we see that it's not the Seder avodah? Like we said before, we ask daily, do not bring me to a test. And if the person says, you know what, I'll do it anyway. I'll bring myself to a test. If a person enters himself in a place of a test, then we say that is not appropriate. It's similar to someone that says, I will sin and I will do tshuva. Then they make it difficult for the person to do tshuva. Now, it's not identical. The Echtav Ashuv means simply says, I'm going to sin, I'm going to eat this thing that's not kosher, and then I'll do tshuva for it, or I'm going to chas sholem not keep Shabbos, and then I'm going to do tshuva for it. Here we're talking about not that he's going to do the Aveda, but he's going to say, you know what, I want to elevate the Aveda. How am I going to do that? I'm going to place myself in a state of Nesayah. I'm going to put myself in a place of a test. So the Rebbe says, even putting yourself in a place of a test with the intention of not doing the Aveda Chas v'Sholom is also inappropriate. A person should not place themselves in a place of a test, because just like we daven every day, and if a person does place himself in a place of a test, so then it's a big risk, just like this person that says, I will sin and I will do tshuva. But that is only when he's engaging in klippa in a way, like we said before, biyoida makira. But when a Jewish person connects with the Eibishter through studying these topics in Torah, and the study is in such a way that he wants to know the God of his father, in such a way that he makes a bracha on the Torah initially. What does he say in the Birchas HaTorah? Noisein HaTorah. The giver of the Torah, Lashon Haiva, in present tense, he has realized that he is now sitting with the Eibishter. And he knows that Hashem is reading and learning, facing him. Like a teacher of Baal Shem Tov. That the Rebbe was accustomed to repeat this saying in Baal Shem Tov. On the pasuk that Hashem is your shadow. Just like a shadow mimics what the person is doing. So to Hashem does what the person does. This is the exact language in the Maimer Chazal that says whoever reads and learns, that's why it says he is opposite him, he is facing him, because the Eibishter is exactly imitating him. That it's something that it's a direct result of what the person is doing. So then, when that's the way that the person is engaging with Klippus, by learning about the Klippus, even when he's descending in the very much below to no end, kosher he's bound up above. Because his involvement with Klippus is because of his involvement in Torah study in a way of knowing the God of your father. And he's successful in such a way of initially over. He's not even engaging with the Klippus. That all of his matter has become in a way that all your actions are for the sake of heaven and all your ways you should know. And he's victorious in the Melcham of Hashem, in a complete victory through the attribute of victory. Like we know that it says about the Eibishter, that the everlasting one or the victorious one of the Eden will not lie and will not change his mind. Until it becomes fulfillment to the promise, I will transform to the nations a clear language, top of Memal. That all should call out in the name of Hashem. That all should serve the Eibishter as what? Be for Hashem will be the reign and the kingship. In such a matter, in the same way that I am written, so too I am read without any difference. In other words, the Yud Kei Vav Kei will be pronounced with the letters Yud Kei Vav Kei, not the way it's pronounced now as Aleph Dal Nun Yud. And spiritually, the idea behind that is that also down here below will shine the higher level of Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, level of Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei that's higher than Seder Ishtalshlus. Like it says, that the glory of Havaya will become revealed, even if Shem Havaya Leila. And to such a degree will the glory of Havaya be revealed. Until all flesh will see together the mouth of Hashem spoke. All this will be speedily in our time, mamish, and the that's completed and becomes completed. The avodah of refining the sparks, including also the polishing of the buttons. Like it's known, the well-known saying of my father-in-law, the one whose yard said it is, that all we need to do is just polish the buttons, like an army officer or a parade of soldiers, that they need to just polish the buttons for the parade before the king passes by. And all the army of Hashem are standing, and they arrange themselves like in a parade before Hashem. The God of Tzvaka is in a way of sublimation. It's not Sava Havaya, but Tzivois Havaya. Tzivois Havaya, Lashon Samo. That it connects the word Sava to Havaya, that the army is ancillary to and nullified to Havaya. And every one of the members of the army receives from the greatest treasure and the most precious treasure. From his full and open and holy and broad hand, in such a manner that even while being in the time of Golus, the Mitzrayim, to all the Eden becomes light in their settlements, just like was Mitzrayim, even before they left, they had light. Yad lachris of Yisrael yoytz miyad Raman. Immediately after this, the Yidden go out in a raised up hand. Bereish Gali. Bereish Gali means like Rashi says, with a great and high strength.
Have a question on the previous ois.
Okay.